Just give me a sec. It gives me the notice here. Yes, there it goes. Recording has started. All
Okay,
right, bingo.
and Sealy is right on time at 6:30. All right, this is the Enfield Planning Board. It's April 26th. We are at the Enfield DPW facility, and also we are on Microsoft Teams. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6:31. And we will do a roll call. People present from my left, starting with Eric,
Eric Russell.
Dan Kiley.
David Frack,
Phil Vermeer.
Tim Jennings.
Kurt Barnhart.
Jim Bonner.
staff people,
Bob Taylor.
Whitney Baker.
and on Zoom.
Linda Jones.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm doing well. 80 degrees here today.
We had that last week. Thank you.
I guess I'll come back then.
No, not to digress too much, but we went up to Newport, Vermont on that very warm Sunday and had a very nice dinner on the lake.
Nice.
Anyhow, public comments. Sealy, anything that you want to talk about?
No.
Okay, select board report. Eric, what are you guys up to?
Well, it's, at our last meeting, most people here probably know there's been an invasive species, study of town roads and properties going on. And the report was presented. I believe it's available online for everybody now that it's been formally presented. And on May 6th at the community building from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., there's going to be a presentation for that report. It's very nice. They've categorized all sorts of invasives throughout town, put together some remediation plans, which will is sort of the next step, is to start doing some remediation. But they also identified actually some rare species as they were doing the survey. I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but there's one little stand of something on Mascoma Lake, which was the only one in the county.
Some
Mhm.
kind of willow.
Yeah, it was some kind of willow, and it's a native willow, and it's at this point the only one they know of within Grafton County. So that was kind of cool. But anyway, I'd encourage people to check out that report and learn about it. And while it's focusing on town properties, obviously, there's an education component to all these things, which property owners will be very interested in. You know, if you have it on your property, what are the appropriate ways to deal with it and whatnot. And other than that, just kind of business as usual. Nothing too exciting.
Okay. Next, we have the land use administrator report. Rob, what is been going on since 2 weeks ago when we got your
Well,
big
I will
update?
tell you, effective last year, Ed, town manager, reorganized the department so that Liam, building inspector, is now part of my department of land use and development. I think I may have mentioned that. Building permits have kicked in big time. We did 5 building permits just today. And so we're doing a lot of stuff along those lines. No single family homes, mostly renovations, decks, services for electricity. A lot of solar seems to be the hot topic in town these days. We're doing a lot of solar installations for residential, which I think is great, sort of a sign of the times. So that's very busy.
Rob, can I?
Yeah.
May I?
Yeah.
On the building permit data,
Mhm.
Do you guys keep a running tally from year to year with things?
Yep.
I know that probably updating that every couple of weeks is not, that's maybe too often, but I'm wondering if maybe periodically.
Yeah.
A report, which is probably just one sheet of, these are the kinds of building permits we've got and the number thereof.
Yep, I can totally do that.
Would the rest of the board be interested in seeing that from time to time?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, especially if it's a units.
housing units versus just an addition to,
Yeah,
like
I
a
mean-
renovated bathroom, that kitchen is sort of like, okay, so, it's fine,
Right.
but maybe exterior or especially if it crouches into the setback areas and
Yeah.
the ZBA gets involved.
Yeah, so we keep, it's basically an Excel spreadsheet of each permit and what the permit was for, permit number, name, address, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And so right now, we're running about even with last year. I think we were down just slightly. But it, to me, made sense coming through. We had sort of a, winter kind of set in, then it stopped and we went to spring and then winter came back. And
Mhm.
so I would say the weather was sort of responsible for a little bit of slowdown in March. And now it's definitely, like I just said, I mean, 5 in one day is very busy.
Yeah, and the kind of information that would be useful to the planning board, it may take a little while to sort out what it is we'd actually like to see and be useful to us. And like you say, Kurt, a lot of that stuff is, yeah, we probably aren't interested.
Yeah, I mean, we have to report, for both federal and state. They want to know dwelling units. And obviously, the net gain is the important number. Last year, we had 16 new dwelling units constructed. 4 were reconstructed, so it was actually a net gain of 12. So we increased the dwelling units in town by 12.
And some of those would have been added apartments or new single family homes.
Yeah, mostly single family homes.
Mostly.
Yep. But when you talk about the 4 that went away, those are most likely mobile homes.
Mhm.
So, you pull out a old junky mobile home and you pull in a new one, there's your 1-for-1. So 4 of those last year were mobile homes that were raised and replaced.
Mhm.
But there was, of the 12 net, most of those were single family homes. Might have been 1 or 2 ADUs, but as we discussed at the last meeting, the ADU certainly are on people's mind. I'm still taking calls, I would say, in the last, since we last talked, I probably had 4 or 5 more calls. So it's been, in the 20s total since the town meeting that we've talked to people about it. And I think I mentioned last time, I am scheduled for a meeting in June with the New Hampshire Board of, the Upper Valley Board of Realtors to make a presentation to them. I do have a meeting next week. Vanessa Stone Real Estate has asked me to come speak specifically to her agents, which, as you know, it's a big real estate firm. I think she's got 10 or 12 agents there. So I'll be going over to talk to them. They also wanted to talk about Shoreland, which is something that the realtors could really use some help with in terms of understanding how it all works. It's a lot of what we do here is sort of simultaneously happening at DES with Shorelands. Beaver Point, I communicated today with Tim Sador. That's the piece of property on the rail trail. It's the sandbar or the swimming spot, sort of landlocked on Mascoma Lake. Which we had our big map up, I could point to it. But a guy bought that, hoping to develop that site. It's completely inaccessible. The rail trail is the only way to get there. It's been an attractive nuisance for the police. We just had another sexual assault in the last month down there. We've been working with the property owner. He's friends with Mike Davidson. They were Dartmouth frat boys together. And he's from Miami, the owner. So we've really been using our contact with Mike Davidson, Tim Sador's sort of the property manager, to help try to get the place torn down. As if you guys have been down there, there's
Mhm.
right before the cut,
Right.
which is the stone cut, there's this old abandoned building that is, it's got terrible graffiti, sexually explicit, I might even mention some people that live in town. And like I said, we've had drug activity there, sexual assaults. It's gotta go. We've been putting the pressure on as hard as we can. At some point, if they don't pull the trigger on actually taking it down, it's gonna be up to the select board to actually probably do that work. And then we can actually put the bill on the property, lien it, and get the money back for whatever it costs. We've been telling the property owner that we will help them get access temporary to get in there and remove the structure. Hammond is ready to do the work from Canaan. They just need to get in there with a couple of roll-off dumpsters and some big trucks and an excavator with a thumb that they can just crunch it and munch it into a container to take it away. Unfortunately, the property owner keeps saying, oh, if you can get me in there or take it down, then you can get me in there to build something new. And I'm like, nope,
Nope.
not a. In fact, I've been sort of advising if he wants to do something with that site in the future, he's gonna have to sort of treat it as an island. Cause we do have properties on islands,
Mhm.
they can
Yeah.
come in from the water. And there's obviously special permitting for that from the state and so forth, but he's talking neighboring property owners to try to get in, cause you can cross the rail trail, but you can't go down the rail trail.
Mhm.
But that's been a non-starter. The person that's got the neighboring property has actually, I think, filed a restraining order. It's because he keeps trying to talk to them. And so basically, we've said we'll work with the New Hampshire DOT to get you temporary access down there for, 1 or 2 days, basically, to get in and out. We've been waiting for the place to dry out. It's still kind of muddy, as you probably, it was starting to dry out actually last week, but with this rain, I think it's probably another month away from actually getting in there again. So I maybe mentioned at the beginning of the meeting or before the meeting, ZBA starting to pick up with activity because summer is coming and construction season. Again, the ZBA, it's mostly area variances. I've got one for the next meeting in 2 weeks for Route 4A property. I was just on site this afternoon up on Crystal Lake. Same old, it's setback intrusions, mostly to side boundaries. Very rarely is it to the street, side lots and to water, the 50-foot, either to a lake or to a river or stream or wetlands and that kind of stuff. We talked last time a little bit about Laramie Farms. I've been in constant communication with them. The big wild card there, we've had meetings with them here on site and with the town manager and with the public works director. If they're gonna take advantage of the 300 unit density, we gotta find some water. The current system is probably would have been able to handle 150 units, but the 300 we think is gonna require another well. The good news there is the property owners are interested in working with us to allow us to perhaps drill a well on their land, which is right at the bottom of Moose Mountain. So
There's about a 6% chance of discovering the proper well for a municipality.
it's a crapshoot, yeah. So we drilled a new well last fall. And it was not a complete bust, but it was not a big win either. It was 40 gallons a minute.
Yeah, that area's been studied hydrogeologically 3 times now, and twice since I've been here and once before me. And I'm not surprised that we didn't turn up a big well up there.
Yep.
So I think having the well on that property, I certainly wouldn't bet anything that they would turn up something decent.
Yep.
That's not to say that, you probably could drill a well some other place in town and
Yep.
they pay for it.
Yeah.
Certainly the issue is one where, well, you could maybe even accommodate the 150, that immediately throws into question anybody else wanting to build anything.
Oh,
in
yeah.
the village, all the ADUs, all the infill lots, anything else that would want to go on.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of our biggest challenges. And actually, we have the capacity on the sewer side in terms of treatment capacity at Lebanon. We own 300,000 gallons treatment capacity at Lebanon. We're only using maybe 70 or 80,000 gallons a day of that. But another big wild card there is the pumping stations that we use down at Shaker Bridge and a few others. And as you guys probably saw in the paper last year, Lebanon's gonna have to probably upgrade the pipe between the end of Mascoma Lake and Bank Street Extension, which is basically down by the Packard Covered Bridge. The the pipe that they have, it was installed maybe 30, 40 years ago. And it turned out that soil is very acidic there, and it's actually, last year they had a leak. And so we ended up here in Enfield having a couple of days where we were trucking our sewage from basically Shaker Bridge down to beyond the pipe while they were doing repairs. And it was kind of bad news. You can look up the Valley News article again. It's the batch of pipe that they put in, and then the soil acidity have contributed to that pipe being suspect now. And Sean Mahal, the city manager of Lebanon, was quoted as like, this could be a very big deal. Of course, it's not just for us. There's Lebanon residents on the end of the lake down there. Those are all Lebanon people. So they've got to figure that out too. They've got to figure out what they're going to do about that. And of course, there's a section where it actually goes underneath Mascoma River. So it's actually, there's a low point there and it kind of siphons. And they installed some really neat equipment there to try to deal with it. This thing called a pig launcher, which is like an ice chunk that they can launch through it to try to clean it out. Using ice is the best way, because if you fail, it melts and you're back to square one. But there's a thing called an atmospheric break down there. I don't want to get too far in the weeds with that, but that's challenges, but.
One related question.
Yep.
At one point, it may still be the case, a new sewer customer would have to pay an impact fee to the city of Lebanon. Is that still in place?
Yeah. Yeah, so we just, it's relatively new. The connection fee that we charge is now also joined by a Lebanon impact fee, basically. And so it's significant. We just sent a customer a bill for a connection of $30,000.
Oh.
It's a commercial customer, but that's a kind of sign of the times. And we've been bracing people that are coming in to sort of plan on that, including the Laramie Farms, and they're aware of that as being part of the initial investment for them. It's based on the number of bedrooms and the impact of the volume of what the sewer will connect up.
And yet we own 300,000 gallons of capacity at the city.
Yeah, I remember our previous town manager, Ryan, was trying to fight it. It was something that he didn't agree with. And I think most of us here don't really agree with it, but it's kind of one of those things. I think Jack, when he was here, our interim town manager, kind of looked at it from a legal standpoint. He was a lawyer and looked like they can hit us with those fees if they want to. And so we're paying them at this point. But it does add significant cost to anybody that wants to connect up to the system, particularly if you're going to use a lot of water.
Yeah, and that's an issue. You see the city of Lebanon occasionally see a report in the newspaper where some official at the city or elected official has complained that the local towns aren't doing enough to promote housing.
Right.
Well, you see the rub there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
On the, couple of quick questions
Mhm.
before we move on. One on the building permits, do they have expiration dates?
1 year.
Okay.
Yep.
And then on Laramie Farms, couldn't they just put in their own private well
They could.
and do it that way?
They could. The challenge there, though, is it basically, it becomes its own municipal water system.
Mhm.
I'll give you an example, the Lower Shaker Village.
Yeah.
They have their own water system. And so they're regulated just like we are. And it's a real challenge for them because, they're trying to do it on the cheap. They're trying to do it,
Right,
as low cost as possible.
Yeah.
So they hire a part-time water operator who has to have just the same licenses and training as our full-time guys do.
Yeah.
And, it's a challenge. It's a real challenge.
Yeah, so it's-
So there's definitely advantage for them to be part of a municipal
Yeah.
system. As we saw last year, I mean, we had a heck of a time last year with our own system.
Right.
And, just think of a residential
Mhm.
place. Talking to the builders, they understand. I mean, as Kate maybe mentioned when we first met with them, that we can actually levy our own impact fees for a big development. I've given them an estimate on the current use penalty alone for Laramie Farms, could be as much as 600,000 in direct current use penalty.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
600,000 coming into the town, gotta think we can drill some wells with some of that money. I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's.
And we could also levy a special impact fee specifically for sewer or infrastructure or whatever we think it's in our zoning ordinance, so we can
Yeah.
certainly do that.
And certainly, if we're at a point with our water where we only have 150 units worth of water, we need to be thinking about having impact fees on the water side as well as on the sewer side.
Yeah,
And something to take with you on that, Eric, is that, if they gave you $1 million
Right.
to put a new well in.
Right.
You still only got about a 10% chance of finding it.
Right.
So it could be a lot of money that
Yeah.
just sits there and no well
Right,
materializes.
yeah, right.
It really needs to be one where the well is drilled, tested, and proven
Right.
before
Right.
the development
Right.
happens.
Ideally, they drill the well.
Well, or we drill it with their money, but
Well, no, ideally, they drill the well and anything over what they need goes into our system.
Yeah, we've talked about, I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things that I was kind of pushing on was the Shaker water system
Yeah.
is
That's the
fantastic,
other thing.
but it doesn't have enough of, wellhead protection. There's only 200 feet radius, where the municipal is 400 feet radius. But interconnecting those two systems, I always thought would make sense because they have the water and it's fantastic water. It's just not, it's not gonna meet the 400-foot radius.
well, pay attention to that because
Yeah.
that is really the only tried and true new water source for the town that is available.
Right,
yeah.
And all they'd have to do is drill a new well further up the hill.
Exactly. And they actually have two wells, the Shaker, the lower Shaker Village, and they're at the bottom of Shaker Mountain and 4,000 acres of protected land. I think there's a fantastic aquifer there.
Yeah,
But it's a crapshoot because it's not just the water being down there. You need to find the seam in the bedrock. And so you can drill here and get nothing. Move 10 feet over there and you can get 100 gallons a minute. It's crazy how that works. I know it all personally from my own personal residence, and it's crazy. It's a crapshoot, you know, you're betting. So that's gonna be a challenge, but I will say, my personal feeling, and this is for all you guys, you know, what's been happening in Everett Valley is basically Mount Support Road, Lebanon, ground zero for housing, 1,500 new units of housing.
Right.
And there's more planned. There's a few things in Lebanon yet to go. I think the golf course may happen in there, and there's a few other developments. But what you're gonna see is that circle is gonna widen. And they're gonna be coming, looking for sewer. That's what they're looking for to begin with, because that's where you need to go with this density. And so I think we're on that list. The next one I was gonna talk about is the LaCroix land. Sure.
I have another question about Laramie, if I may. What exactly what exactly do they need in terms of a variance?
So zoning approvals, I'll say, it's not just variance. Variance number one for them would be height. Buildings as they've presented them to us are a little over 35 feet. You missed the meeting 2 weeks ago. We had the fire chief in, we had a nice long
understand.
conversation about that. So that's number one, as a variance that they would most likely need. They probably need a special exception for wetlands crossing. They've been up there and delineated wetlands just in the last couple of weeks. They've got new elevations, new survey, new maps. That's part of our regs. So something we were talking about with another landowner recently. Those are the two that pop right out for you. And of course, you know, I know we've had some discussions back and forth. That's the natural thing for them to go to zoning first, because if they can't get the zoning approval, it's kind of a deal breaker.
How does, okay, so you've got, and you get two lots of roughly 75 acres each? No, or is this one lot? of
One lot, 77. Yeah.
Right.
There's two lots.
There's two lots that adds up to 77
They're-
acres.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yep.
so.
Yep.
And there, what provision in our current ordinance would permit them, if the building height wasn't an issue, if the wetlands weren't an issue, to construct a 300 unit apartment building there? I mean, we're talking about R1 district, which is now,
multifamily, it's allowed in R1.
And we just changed our
Density.
reg to 1/4 acre per dwelling unit, as long as you're on municipal sewer.
yeah, so
So
that's,
you take the total number of acres times,
But we don't have a PUD. That's the problem that I have with his proposal. It's one dwelling per lot. Plus ADUs.
Well, that's it. They're gonna have to get variance,
Multifamily.
multifamily.
Multifamily doesn't require variance.
But it's still one structure.
But we changed that. We changed that language too. We just said you had to have primary structure.
Right.
So the way that I've been interpreting that is you can say that building's our primary, these are
These are all-
secondary to that building over there.
Even though, you know. I think that could be.
Well, it's the only way you can have multi-use in this town.
No, I know, but I'm just saying what our regs currently state.
Well, that's why that was changed basically, so that you can have multi-use in town. Cause if not, you couldn't build an apartment building,
Multifamily, you're talking.
a multi-family apartment building.
But they're
Unless
talking
you
mul-
had-
But they're talking multiple buildings though.
Well, unless you've got 30 different lots up there.
Right,
You'd
right,
have to break it up into 30 lots.
right, yeah, at least on
Yeah.
paper.
Well, isn't that what they'd have to do anyway?
No, I suspect they'd want to cut it into maybe the one per, they may have to cut it into 6 if they're going to have 30 or 40 in a building. Or they may get a variance that says we want to have all 6 on one lot. I mean, zoning could approve a variance like that.
ZBA.
ZBA could.
And what would be the grounds?
Yeah, I haven't, that's not my interpretation of it. My interpretation.
I
is that they
think
can do-
we really
We're in
shouldn't
a-
be
we're in a
talking
place where we shouldn't
about
be.
that,
Yeah.
folks. Is there anything else that you wanted to?
I think the LaCroix land is now being seriously looked at. And when I say serious, I'm talking reputable developers. That's 43 acres. That's in the what's called the Route 4 zone,
Route 4.
which allows up to 12 units per acre. And so, and that also is very much set back from Route 4, so a lot of those regs about being close to Route 4 go away.
Right.
Because it's far enough back. That's on the market, as you guys know, it's 1.9 million for 43 acres. Interestingly, Mr. LaCroix also owns 200 plus acres on Canaan side of the line. Adjoining.
Yeah.
And so, that could be very interesting. Some of the people that have been calling me have been saying, oh, if you develop Canaan side, can we connect up to the Enfield water and sewer? And basically the response that I've been told to give is don't count on Enfield for Canaan side of the line, any infrastructure. We've got our own challenges. We can't.
Mhm.
So if anything happens on the Canaan side, it's gonna be probably single family homes with on-site septic, on-site wells. But it's a big piece of land up there, as I'm sure you know. Probably goes not far from Cardigan Mountain School, is it? I mean, it's
Well, it's
Yeah,
way
it's
away from.
way away.
Way
It
away
goes,
from-
it goes to,
It follows Lovejoy Brook.
yeah.
Right, follows Lovejoy Road.
Yeah.
okay, but it's like two or 300 acres, so.
Oh, yeah, you can't,
Goes up in there.
and the sewer side is, it couldn't anyways, because it's a municipal agreement that
Exactly.
Canaan's not a member of, so they
Exactly.
couldn't be in
Exactly.
Lebanon sewer.
Yep. Eric and I were just alluding to it earlier. Town manager has asked me to, get going on TIF. TIF is sort of loosely reformed. And now, basically, thanks to a new member right over there, we now have 4 members of a 5-member possibility. We're looking for a 5th member, somebody that needs to either own land or live in the TIF district for the 5th member. And we're gonna meet in mid-May and get started on that. Interestingly, with that Bob LaCroix land, is that's in the district. We may be able to use TIF for some of the infrastructure that's required for that one. But if you use the 12 units per acre, 43 acres, that could be over 500 units if you really went all in on that one. But that one is very interesting because, as I said, you know, for the first couple of years I was here, it was tire kickers, and now it's real developers, people that have developed here in the Young Valley. And you can look up on Google and say, these guys are not, you know, disingenuous. They're real, serious. And we're doing some just minor zoning enforcement. We've, you know, when the snow melts and before the leaves come out, you can see junk cars, garbage. We're taking some complaints, we're dealing with some of those issues. Working with our building inspector on some of those, he's coming at it from his health inspector perspective, and I'm coming at it from the zoning ordinance. I maybe mentioned one last thing, Lori Bliss Hill, the Enfield House of Pizza land. She contacted me and is interested in maybe expanding her commercial property there. I don't know if you were on the planning board when they first came in there was more proposed there and they scaled it back.
Right.
And she's had a lot of interest from possible tenants, so she's interested in at least pursuing possibilities. So we'll see what comes from that. That's about it for me.
Okay, great. Next item is the April, I guess it's 12th minutes.
I have copies. Anybody needs that?
Anybody have any corrections, comments, or questions? Linda, anything? Somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as printed.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Dan, seconded by Phil. All in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, that's right, okay. We'll do a roll call. I'm sorry. Eric,
Dan, I.
David,
Bill, aye. Tim, I have to abstain.
you abstain.
Yeah. Aye.
Linda. You're muted. You're still muted.
I,
Okay, minutes are approved as submitted. Thank you, Whitney. Just trying to shorten your name for another, excellent set of minutes. No hearings, no conceptual, probably no new business, old business, mapping project.
Wall's clean.
We have, what?
Wall's clear.
The wall is
That's where
clear.
it's gonna go, right there.
Um,
You filled the holes.
Little holes
Yep.
have been spackled, which is something that I had asked to get done, and I guess that was done yesterday. So tomorrow, the map will go up,
And
and
the tube right over here.
it's there, it's in two pieces that will tile together. And
Self-adhesive.
self-adhesive, stick up on the wall. Dry erase. So we will, have a map at our next meeting. Parcel map.
Yep.
It's outdated by now, probably, but it'll be a guide. Let's talk about the grant application for the zoning ordinance rewrite. And I think I'll probably roll the zoning ordinance rewrite project into that. Rob and I met with Brandy on Friday afternoon or morning, I don't remember when it was. And we discussed, changes to the grant application that were highlighted by the granting organization on a preview. And primarily, they advised us that we don't have a whole lot of time in which to do this, or at least not as much time as I had anticipated, because all invoices need to be submitted by August of 2024. So we redid the scope of work. We cut out the subdivision regulations to save a little bit of time. We compressed some things. And can you scroll down, Rob? To the chart, not the chart, the table.
Features. Yep.
There you go. So can you get rid of Linda?
We're up top.
Put her, yeah, that's good.
That's fine.
Okay, so anticipating a July 1st start date. The first couple of months will be reviewing the existing regulations and the master plan. I think probably we all are familiar with that. Brandy needs to come up to speed. Updating the Enfield Leaps website will be an ongoing project. Scroll down. Informal meetings with various stakeholders, boards and committees, what are we doing? Conservation Committee, the Historical
Energy.
Energy, you name it. We can probably dovetail a lot of those meetings in with the master plan task force, because they're gonna be having the same conversation. Administrative procedures, that's all the boilerplate stuff in the zoning regs. Site plan regulations, can you scroll? Be in month 4 and 5. Revise the zoning districts and the zoning map. That will not occur until months 6 and 7. Define by right and special exception uses, month 7 to 8. Final draft in months 8 to 10. And keep going. We'll run some focus groups in month 11. We'll have some materials prepared, printed stuff, PowerPoint deck, possibly a mailing. That'll happen in July of 2024, and that's where our funding gets cut off. The public hearing, which would be preceding the town meeting vote in 2025. That doesn't cost us anything. And the town meeting vote itself doesn't cost us anything. Looking forward, subdivision regulations will happen somewhere in the 2025 to 2027 timeframe. Funding to be determined. And I think that's the end of that. So total budget or total grant application is 62,344 at this point in time. New Hampshire Housing Academy is a thing that UNH and a whole bunch of people are kind of sponsoring it, and they are pretty much insisting that we send 3 people to learn techniques for public engagement. So there's a $250 stipend that is available to people who attend this academy. Last I looked, it was partially in person and partially online. Room rentals for public meeting, that's something that we did with the planning board for our educational sessions. And that covered renting a room over at the Shaker Inn. We may do it, we may not need to do it, but the money's in there. So that's basically where we are in terms of that whole rewrite project. So that's it, basically. Our next meeting is May 10th. That will be our organizational meeting. Anybody whose term expired and wants to continue should go down to the town clerk and make your desires known. Also tell Rob or tell me, and we'll get you signed up.
I've already been reappointed.
Yeah.
We reappointed already.
On,
Select board.
select board did reappointments last meeting. There may be more outstanding, but
Yeah.
Dan's back for 3 more years.
Okay, good.
For this and for CIP.
What is our term of appointment?
For years.
3 years.
Yeah.
So you've got another 2.
Well, no, it depends on which one he replaced.
Oh, that's right.
Rich, I know, has got one more year. I think. Yeah,
We've got that. Did I replace you?
it should be, it
We'll
should show
figure
in
it
the
out.
town report when you're expiring.
Okay.
Tim is 2020.
That's when your term expires, not when
Yeah.
you expire.
Right, 2025, so you got 2 more years.
He's listed as 24. on-
Oh, that's
on the
right, because
website.
he did Kurt's, which was a new term,
Okay.
yeah. Because you moved to it,
Yeah,
alternate.
yes.
yeah,
Linda, need to get Linda.
okay,
She, according to this list, she expires 5/1/23,
okay,
and then,
she's gone.
Linda,
She's
did
just
you
off
hear
the
that?
board.
Oh, yeah, I'll be
Okay.
back.
okay,
I'll be resworn.
Okay,
And there's the list. We'll need to see it.
I don't think she was on the list, we'll have to,
You can do it for,
Right.
May
I'll
1.
touch base with,
yeah, can you follow up and just make sure?
She's listed as 26 online.
Okay, that means that,
But she was
that means she
reappointed.
was reappointed, she was included in the packet that we did.
good, yep, there she is.
we'll be discussing the rules of procedure and that whole document. So if anybody has thoughts on that, bring them with you and we will discuss and adopt. I think the rules of procedure are online.
I'll share them after tonight. I can send them out tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're in our handbook, right?
They're in the handbook, definitely. That's basically it. Does anyone have anything else they would like to discuss this evening?
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. I don't think we need to do a roll call for this, do we, Dan?
Not really.
All in favor of adjourning? Opposed? Abstained. We are adjourned at, looks like 7:12.
Yeah, I gotta go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. This was a very short meeting. I think we set a new record.
At the next meeting, probably won't be.
Okay,
I'm gonna try to call in, but I'm gonna be on the Outer Banks, and I'm not sure if the Outer Banks will
Never know.
have what I need.
Craig.
Which bank are you going to?
Yeah, right. I may be at Kitty Hawk at that point, looking to see if there are any planes go up in the air.
Dan, if you have any
Almost
thoughts
got you. It's-
on
I'll write 'em
the,
down.
write them up and send them to me, Rob, and
Yeah,
we'll discuss your suggestions.
Yep.
We don't have to get
Hopefully incorporate
that
them.
thing you just read on.
They're usually good.
be on the Outer Banks or here.
I think the bud thing you just read, can you get a copy of it?
Yeah, it's a public document.
What?
Wants a copy of the grant application?
Yep.
Can print that out.
Um,
Public document, yeah.
it, in draft